Assalamu alaikum. My name's Kerry. I am representing Luton Revert Group and recording a podcast for Inspire FM. Luton Revert Group is a community of those individuals who have come to Islam. And we are doing a series over Ramadan just to share our experiences and give insights as to how new Muslims navigate this month. So this particular time, we're going to be talking about navigating Ramadan as a convert when life doesn't stop. And I'm pleased to introduce, I have two of regular colleagues with me as well. If you'd like to say salam, I've got Rosie
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
and Catherine.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
So let's get straight into it. So navigating Ramadan as a convert when life doesn't stop. So this juncture, this is where, we've maybe a week or two into Ramadan, and now maybe it's just starting to hit the kind of intensity of the month, the rigor that's involved, trying to maintain momentum. And quite often converts to Islam are having to do this alone, working through Ramadan and possibly don't have kind of the family routines and family traditions that the born Muslim community might have. So ladies, let's talk about perhaps your experiences of your first Ramadan as a new Muslim, even if that was some time ago. I'm sure your experiences will be relevant to those that perhaps are doing Ramadan for the first time this year.
Okay, Salam alaikum. I'll start with this. I don't actually remember my first Ramadan. It was over 40 years ago. I do remember my first Eid though, but that's maybe for another podcast. Where do I start? I remember just sort of getting on with it, really. Sometimes my husband was with me, but other times he was traveling a lot. And having nothing to compare things with in terms of whether I had a family with me or not, or I just sort of basically got on with it. And alhamdulillah, I didn't struggle that much with it. I got into the swing of it after the first few days. I was able to navigate sort of shortened hours at work for many years, which was really helpful.
And did your work colleagues know that you
No,
were?
not at that time. I was a secret Muslim. Different times, different places.
No, but I think that we still have individuals now who unfortunately still might have family, or work situations that are not, empathetic to somebody accepting Islam and practicing Islam. So
yeah, and you get all the how on earth do you manage? You can't even have water. Are you sure that's okay? Are you going to faint, or how are you going to work? How are you going to manage? And you just have to sort of put aside these concerns and assure people that you'll be fine. You might just need to take a break every now and then. So please continue to have any lunch breaks, work breaks in between. Don't forego that. What I've tended to do, I would sometimes maybe tend to work through. That is a habit of mine anyway, and I'm very bad at taking breaks generally. So whatever breaks you're entitled to or any flexibility, please do that. In the early days, though, for various reasons, I wasn't quite sure of the start, the Sehri and the start of the fast time, and I got things all wrong. I thought it was the start of sunrise. I really didn't know anything about Taraweeh. But on the other hand, not knowing about these things, I think if I did at the time, I'd have felt quite worried that I maybe wasn't able to go. Maybe there was no mosque near me. So not knowing certain things was a blessing on reflection. So you just know what you know, and you do your best to find out, but try not to get stressed about it. pray to Allah that He will guide you and support you and keep you safe, and you'll be okay. And after the first Ramadan, well, you've done it, or you've done one day, you survived, you're okay. So it's keeping positive. And other years, I remember a few years ago, for several Ramadans, it was almost, I was invited to various community iftars or other iftars, if not every other day. It was 5 times a week, and that was a beautiful Ramadan. Being able to take up those opportunities to go to different iftars.
I think that's a really good point, Catherine, because I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
alhamdulillah, here in Luton, we've got, a very large
yeah,
Muslim community and lots of mosques. Although we understand that there is perhaps some anxiety about, going to mosques, especially if you haven't been to one before, or, you just have some worry about it. But, I think that usually mosques have iftars, and having access to that is really,
mm,
a blessing and useful.
yeah. I'd encourage people to go to that. It might feel a bit intimidating, but everybody's very welcome. And of course, you can still join the iftars even if you're not praying because your period's on or you've not been well. They're a really good opportunity to meet people, share experiences, encourage each other, support each other, and that's what you have in Luton. And so that's when in 2009 I came to Luton, but before that there wasn't really anything really that I can remember in terms of community iftars where I
think
was.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said is actually really, really important as well. Whenever you were talking about in those early days for you, you genuinely didn't know much about, when you were meant to start, when you're meant to finish, what you're meant to do, because, unless you had a book that
Mm,
was spelling it out really clearly, you were pretty much on your
yeah,
own. I think now, in a way, we're very, very blessed, and for new Muslims now, you can find anything at a quick touch of your smartphone. You can find out any information, but
yeah,
also it means that you're being given all of the information in one go. And I think for us, that's one of the things that can be quite intimidating,
yeah,
where you kind of feel like you have to do everything all at once because, you whenever you look up and let's face it, there are a lot of I don't want to use the word rules, but there's a lot of guidance around what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And sometimes you find something out and you go, oh my God, I've got to do that now as well. And I've got to do this and I can't do this and I can't do that.
mm,
And we're
Mm.
we're being given everything all at once. And I think for new Muslims, that can be very,
yeah,
very intimidating. I think with us, because we've all been Muslim for quite a while, we were gradually coming to the knowledge of
yeah,
things, gradually
yeah,
finding out things. And I think, even in the time of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were given revelation over 23 years. They didn't
Mm.
get it all overnight. And sometimes as new Muslims, you're given everything overnight. You're given everything. So, I think people need to, try and get the basics right,
Mm.
but not necessarily try to take everything on board all at once. And especially if you're, Catherine was talking about, at the start, maybe, not having community around, having people around who know what they're doing and who can share the breaking of the fast with you and can share recipes with you, and things like that, is an absolute blessing. It's a wonderful thing. But on the other hand as well, it just means that you've got lots and lots and lots of people who want to give you their tuppence worth of, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this.
mm,
And that can be a wee bit overwhelming as well sometimes. So I think we just need to just make sure that we're getting the basics right. When do we start fast and when do we finish? When is it okay not to fast? Um, Things like that.
yeah,
And and gradually add in things. So yeah, just
Yeah,
need
I
to
mean, I'd just like to add in there that if there is anyone listening who is attempting Ramadan for the first time this year, please do reach out to us at Luton Revert Group. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can email us at lutonrevertgroup@gmail.com. We have a thriving community of about 100, I think, or thereabouts, male and female members of the group who some took Shahada a long time ago and some really recently. And we're a very inclusive community. We're happy to always, answer questions and kind of navigate any concerns anyone's got. So please do feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And I think you're so right about, especially if, you're still working and trying to manage your Ramadan timetable around work, and then perhaps, doing a late night Tarawih session at the mosque, which sometimes can be quite long. That can be, a little bit overwhelming. So, do remember that Tarawih is a voluntary act, incredibly rewardable. So, obviously if you can manage it, but maybe think about maybe just doing Tarawih at the weekends, if it's a bit too much and you can't then, make it for waking up for work the next day, maybe think, okay, maybe just do Tarawih at the mosque at the weekends might be, a way to kind of still be part of that and still see community and see people, but kind of, measure yourself a little bit, I think might be a nice idea. Let's kind of explore maybe what to do if you miss a fast or you're kind of struggling with that kind of midday headache, caffeine withdrawal circumstance. Have you guys kind of dealt with that? Any kind of insights for that?
Well, for me,
sorry, go on, Catherine.
I was just going to say, I just sometimes might get a bit lightheaded, but I find if I just sort of sit down and just breathe, it passes. Yeah, I don't get into a panic when you think, oh, I'm feeling dizzy. Oh, no, I've got to have something to eat. Just stop, breathe, maybe get some fresh air, feed on oxygen from outside, and then it passes and I'm able to carry on, inshallah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think for people who are new Muslims now this year, it's a really short fast. It's about 12 and a half hours compared to sometimes in the summer when it's about 19 and a half hours. So it is really relatively short. And I think, we're blessed in this country that we are able to have proper breakfast in the morning before we start our fast. We're able to have proper dinner in the evening. None of us are going to become very unwell unless you've got other pre-existing conditions, which that's between you and Allah and your doctor, whether it is okay for you to fast. But if there's no physical reason why you can't fast, then it's a pretty easy fast. And if you are struggling, as Kerry said about those headaches in the first week, a lot of people think that that's just because they're dehydrated. Most of us aren't dehydrated. You've got plenty of time to drink, and sometimes it is caffeine withdrawal that your body is used to having 3 or 4 cups of tea or coffee in the day. Even if you're only used to having one in the day, it can give you headaches if you just suddenly stop that. So just making sure that you're that you are well hydrated throughout the time whenever you are able to eat and drink. And as Catherine said, if you start to feel a bit of a wobble during the day, just take a few minutes and remind yourself that you actually are okay. Allah has told us that fasting is there for a reason, that fasting is good for us. So unless you're really unwell, you should be able to manage to do it, especially in these short days. So does anybody want to pick up on actually what happens then if you do break your fast?
Yeah, not ideal, obviously. But there are situations that will break your fast, that you might not even have control over. So, for example, I think if you're sick, if you actually physically vomit, might be one of them. If you have sexual relations, that will break your fast. There's lots of rulings around whether or not, medical things like bleeding, but it has to be significant blood loss before that breaks your fast. So, you can still visit the dentist and things like that. It won't be a problem. But obviously for ladies starting their menstrual cycle, that will break the fast as well. So if this does happen, it does mean that you have to make this up post Ramadan. But you do have until the following Ramadan to make up any missed fasts. So any of you that perhaps out there that it's not your first Ramadan and you're coming up to maybe your second or third, but you've still got a couple of fast from last year. You're running late, but now is the time to kind of get into it. And even if you just want to practice this week before we actually start, perhaps, try tomorrow. That would be, helpful to get you into the mood for fasting. But yeah,
Well,
I'm
I was going to say, sometimes we forget we're fasting and we put food in our mouth.
yes,
And I'm not quite sure the ruling, but
taste the
that is sort of
cooking.
forgiving. That's allowed, isn't
Yes,
it? If we've
yes,
sort of
yes.
forgotten.
If
And
you've done it unintentionally,
that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe as well even that we are allowed to taste food. And that doesn't,
Yeah,
as long as
yeah.
you're not swallowing it, like checking for salt levels. I mean, I've never gone that far, but apparently
I
that
have.
that is permissible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have.
yeah.
I've done that frequently, where you taste it, but you spit it out and then just rinse your mouth afterwards, so that you're definitely not ingesting any of it. Just if I just pick up what you said about vomiting, there are things that do break your fast. If you intentionally vomit, so you stick your fingers down your throat. Sorry, it's a bit gross, but if you intentionally vomit, then that breaks your fast, and you
Mm.
have to make that day up. If you accidentally vomit, or you have nausea and it just comes, and you're not intentionally doing it, then that does not break your fast. And if
Thank
you're
you
well
for
enough, you can
clarifying.
continue with the rest of
Yes.
the fast for that day. And as Catherine, and Kerry both said as well, if you forget that you're fasting and you pop something in your mouth and you eat it, that does not break your fast. But this is the thing as well. Allah knows whether it's intentional or not. And this is where it comes in, so there's no point in pretending that you accidentally forgot, because it's between you and Allah. Fasting is only between you and Allah anyway. Nobody else
Mm,
knows.
mm,
Nobody else in the world knows whether you're fasting properly or not. Because whenever you go to the bathroom to do your wudu, even if you've got watchful eyes around or whatever, you could easily be, sort of doing your wudu and swallowing a few mouthfuls of water. It's only Allah and you that know. That's why Allah says that fasting is only for Him.
Mm.
So even though it
mhm.
may be obvious to other people if you break your fast, sometimes people can break their fast and it's only obvious to Allah. But so yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for clarifying that one. So as well, I mean, those questions that we all get around in Ramadan around fasting, especially from perhaps work colleagues or family. About the one we always have a chuckle about, not even water. So, I mean, as a new Muslim, these questions can be a little bit daunting, especially if you haven't got all the knowledge to kind of back up your answers. How do you guys have any recommendations about how to navigate those kind of questions?
I think just basically be honest, and if you don't know the answer, say I don't know the answer. And I mean, I was talking to somebody yesterday. I hadn't met them before, and I said how I couldn't go to an event later in the week because I'll be fasting. Oh, do you fast? And he was very understanding about it. And he said he's a teacher and he's practiced fasting to support his pupils. But he had the insight to say it must be very difficult when you're the only one in your family that's fasting. And and it was so having that being honest with yourself and other people as well. It generally brings about positive conversations, in my experience.
Yeah, it can be quite difficult, especially if you're around people who genuinely don't have any knowledge of what fasting means for us as Muslims. I mean, I've just started a new job last week, and I haven't seen any other Muslims there. So I know that is I'm going to be having those conversations fairly regularly, which I suppose is easier whenever it's people that you work with. That's fairly easy to navigate because we just explain to them, and as Catherine says, if you're not sure, just say I don't really know, but that's good because I'm going to go and find that out for myself as well. I think it's a little bit more difficult whenever it's family that ask you, and family can be a little bit more. Let's face it, family can be more judgmental than people
Direct.
who are just colleagues. Yeah.
Mm.
Because they really don't get it. And for us, we absolutely get the importance of what we're doing. we understand, generally we understand why we're doing it. Families don't necessarily, and sometimes can be quite cutting in their remarks. I mean, even, I was in a situation a couple of weeks ago with a family member. I was back home for the weekend. It was time to pray. I knew that it was coming near Maghrib time, and I hadn't prayed the Dhuhr Asr yet. And I had to go and pray. And the family member just, said, "Oh, do you really have to? Are you really going to put a prayer mat down and bend over and everything out here?" And I was going, "It's fine. I'll go and find a little corner and I'll pray. It's important." And she said, "Well, I'm sure Allah wouldn't be bothered if you delay it for a little while in the grand scheme of things." Just did not get it all, but really kind of putting it down, and made me feel quite uncomfortable. And I think, especially if I've been a Muslim for years. She's known that I've been a Muslim for years, so I just kind of batted off a little bit. I think it's quite difficult whenever it's a family member, and especially if you're, as well, if you're a hidden Muslim as well, because a lot of us were, let's face it, right in the early days. We didn't really talk about it with our families. Some of you may be in the same situation where you haven't told your colleagues at work, you haven't told your family members, and you have to make excuses about why you're not eating, why you're not drinking, why you're doing certain things at certain times. May Allah just make it easy for you guys, because I think we've all been there. And it can be quite difficult, but so don't be too hard on yourself. Try and, if you find something that works, if you find an excuse that works, you find a reason that people seem to be content with, then go with that, and share that. If you're on a WhatsApp group with other new Muslims or other sisters, share that as well, so that people can kind of go, "Oh, that's a good idea. I might try that one," because there's safety in numbers. Let's face it,
Also, there is sometimes family members might be, because they might be concerned about you. Generally, that's where it's coming from. They're concerned that how can you not eat and not drink? That might be sort of what's behind their concern.
Oh yeah.
Which is a valid concern. It is. We're used to our 3 staple meals a day. Let's face it. And so to suddenly switch all that off, not it is challenging, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be about self-discipline. And there is something that happens which, until you experience it for yourself in Ramadan, there's something that happens where the whole month, just something elevates in that time, something inexplicable happens to your kind of spiritual consciousness and just your awareness generally, and it's supposed to be that reset and self-discipline. So yes, family and friends are right to be concerned, but we just need to be able to explain to them that this actually is something that is incredibly beneficial for me. It's something I really believe in. It's something that provides this kind of situation where I can be more spiritually aware, and I think that's a nice way to think of it.
Yeah.
And it is a reset, and it is, we know that it's in all faiths. There's a fasting form of worship, and there, I mean, even sort of secular, there's fasting is now recommended as a health regime. So you can have those sort of conversations if it is about health and etc. That also, there is the spiritual awareness, and also just stepping back from feeding ourselves, and not just feeding ourselves with the stomach, but just buying and accumulating things. Everything just sort of goes back to basics, and what we essentially we don't need a lot of what we have, particularly in Western society. That puts things in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that pretty much wraps up our conversation for this session. I would just like to mention that the Inspire theme this week is kindness, and kind of those acts of kindness that we can do through the month of Ramadan. And I particularly like, those kind of small and consistent things. Have you two got a little kind of last thing that you might like to say on that topic?
Be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And be kind as well to those family members who may not understand why you're doing what you do. You know, be kind to them. And as Kerry says, they're coming from a place of concern a lot of the time whenever they're, questioning why you're doing things, it's because they're coming from a place of concern. So give them that, and give them the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies. I
Thank you.
appreciate your time as
Thank
always
you.
and your insight and experience. Once again, so this is Luton Revert Group. You can contact us via Facebook, via Instagram, or via email, lutonrevertgroup@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everyone. Assalamu
Thank you.
alaikum.
Walaikum salam.